I'm gonna have a little look at making drum loops out of chopping drum loops out of tracks and you repurposing them to use them in your own tracks, because I've had a few questions on it. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I go about making a loop, a solid loop out of a drum track cut out of another track. Then I'm going to have a quick look at how to stretch that loop to fit the tempo of your project. And then I might, if I've got time, do a little bit on chopping it up and glitching it and stuff. I've cut this drum section out of a track. It's got a couple of bars with some nice clean drums, so that's what I'm going to use. So if any of you can tell me, the first person who can tell me where that drum loop came from, I'll give you a free download code for the ES2 tutorials. I'll be surprised if someone gets it, so that should make things a bit more interesting. First thing I've got to do is find a downbeat of a couple of bars where the drums are clean. So, oops, I think somewhere over here. Okay, that's the downbeat of the bar. To be able to do that, you need to have a little bit of feel for rhythms and stuff, and a knowledge of where a bar begins and ends. But I think most people have a fairly natural sense of that. So, and it's usually going to be a kick drum where that is. So yeah, that's my first kick drum. So I'll zoom in. I'll use the zoom tool, which the shortcut is Control and Alt, and then you can zoom in like that, which is so useful. If you're not already using that shortcut, you should be. Again, I'm going to use the Escape key to bring up the Tools menu and press 5. Again, like learning those shortcuts will really make your life easier and a lot quicker. So I'll chop just before the kick drum, and I'll move that to so that it starts bang on a bar. Okay, so okay, I've got 2 bars there, and I'm happy. I don't mind that this little guitar bit's in one of the bars. I can use that. Sometimes I might just use the first bar, but it's nice to have 2 or 3 bars if you can, because it gives variation, which is one reason why I like to use drums from other tracks in the first place. So again, I'm going to zoom in and cut just before this next kick drum. Okay, so that should give us a loop that loops fairly naturally, as long as the drums were fairly in time to begin with. Cool, so that's a pretty natural loop. This is all fairly basic stuff so far, but it's useful to know. Useful to know. From here, we can do one of 2 things. We could either try and change the tempo of our track to fit the drum loop, if we want to start with this drum loop. So in that case, I'm sure there's a quicker way to do it, but what I usually do is literally just keep changing the timing on the tempo down here until we get this lining up with the bar. So keep doing nice small changes. Oops. Okay, and I'd zoom in and make sure that that is really tight. Oops. It's a bit fiddly sometimes. Okay, so that's pretty much precise. And now that should fit in with the click. So now our track is in time with that. But what if we want to make the loop in time with an already existing track? Say I've got a track that's at 110. Well, I like to use, you could flex time it, but for this particular task I like to use the time and pitch machine, which is in the sample editor, because it's very precise, and it's got a few different algorithms you can use, and I'm just used to using it this way. So I double click on the region to bring up the sample editor, and what I'm going to do is factory, time and pitch machine. Now there's two different modes you can use. You can use free or classic. Free will change the tempo and keep the pitch of your drums exactly the same, or whatever material you're using, whereas classic, when you change the tempo, you also change the pitch as if it was a turntable. When you spin it faster, it also brings the pitch up. That's classic's useful if you're taking breaks to use in, for example, drum and bass. The classic drum and bass sound has drum breaks which are sped up, and the pitch of those breaks has gone up because they've been sped up, and that makes them sort of sit on top, and then you can sort of do a big fat kick and snare from your samplers or your synths to provide the big, the big fat hits, and then all the nice little all those will be higher in pitch. I'm going to use the free mode, so we're in the same pitch, and it's pretty easy really. The length at the moment is 2 bars and a bit, basically. I want to make it 2 bars exactly, so I double click on that and just hit 2 and process and paste, and with any luck that should make my loop exactly 2 bars long, which is what I want. Cool, it's worked. I forgot to mention that there's a few different algorithms you can use here. Obviously these are drums, so the rhythmic or beats algorithms are good, but if you're trying to re-speed vocal loops or anything else, you can try a few of the different algorithms out, and they'll have different effects, and sometimes you'll get a grainy sound, so it's a bit of experimentation required basically. So cool, so that's our loop, chopped to fit in the tempo with our track and sped up to and we can loop it perfectly and use that in our track. This beat's quite tight with the groove, in time, but if you've got a drum beat which is a bit out of time, if it's a bit loose, well, first of all, you might want to keep that looseness. That might be one reason you're sampling these drums. But if you don't, then that's the time I would start diving into flex time. So, and it can also be useful for regrooving audio. So to do that, I hit Apple F, and this little menu comes up here, which is set to off. And again, you can choose from a number of different algorithms, which is basically the way Logic calculates where the transients are, where the hits are, so that it knows where the beats are. So I'm going to use rhythmic. Obviously, if you were using tuned stuff, you'd use monophonic or polyphonic. It'll analyze the audio. Might be a bit slow because I'm doing a massive time machine backup up here. Okay. Now, whoops. Now what we can do is we can click anywhere on these lines, these faint lines, to put in markers, and we can move stuff. But as you can see, by doing that, I'm moving the whole track the whole region in relation to itself, because there's only one marker here. If we want to move this beat independently, what we have to do is put a marker either side, and that way it'll move independently. The quicker way to do that is to, instead of clicking the top half of the region, click in the bottom half, and it automatically creates those for you. So you could, I don't know how this will sound, but cool. So, it makes a kind of interesting little difference to the beat, and you can. That's one of the great things about flex time. It gives you so many more options when you're playing around with beats, audio beats. I could go further. I'll try. I don't know how much time I've used up already, or whether you guys want to know any more, or whatever. So another thing that I would probably consider doing with material like this is to chop it into equal parts. I'll take the loop off, and by using the scissor tool, again, Escape 5 is my quick shortcut to the scissor tool. And if you hold down Alt with the scissor tool, when you chop a region, it will chop all the whole region into chunks of that size. So say I chop the region here, which is 2 beats. It chops the whole region into that. So now I can, like, I don't know, I'll make a new track, which I'll just mute, and now it gives me somewhere to put audio when I want to move it around. So I can, whoops. You get the idea. You can mess around with that. Another, that's from here you can really start to glitch it up. So you could make some of these hits really small and loop them. Probably won't sound particularly good with this beat because it's a fairly smooth, groovy beat. But with sort of beats you cut out from old garage tracks and stuff, this can be really cool. And you can make all those sort of Aphex Twin style beat repeat things. I like to do my beat repeats manually when I do it because you just get loads more control. So that sort of thing. Then the next step might be to add a channel EQ and automate I like to put the Q value up a bit so you get a little bump, a little resonant bump. Put that up high, and now I can automate that to basically produce a sort of filter sweep. Maybe I'll do it the other way around. You get the idea. You can take this anywhere. So I could add an AU pitch plugin. In the Apple audio units, there's a bunch of plugins which are really basic, but they've got some nice functionality. I think these are sort of like the audio units which the other ones are built from. They contain all the algorithms. So this AU pitch plugin lets you re-pitch stuff automatically on the fly. So again, I'll go into the automation of that, change the pitch, and ooh, crazy. You get the idea. You can play about with this for a long time. Another thing that's useful to know when you're making these, when you're doing glitching like this, is that you can convert loops to real copies. That's useful for 2 reasons. First of all, it means you can change the lengths independently for each one. And also you can then change you can say, let's try and make this so it kind of spreads out. So we get the effect of the beat repeat sort of slowing down. And we probably change the automation a bit. Alright, a very quick bodge job, but you get the idea. One final tip. I've gone through loads of stuff in this very quickly, so this, I guess, video is probably going to be better for people who already know a little bit about Logic. It's not really a beginner's thing, but another useful tool is to convert to new audio file. And the reason for that is you can then play with if these are little aliases of chunks taken from a bigger audio file. So if I double click on the sample file, you can see that this is actually just a little chunk of that whole song. It's still storing that whole audio file as one. So if I, for example, if I change the pitch of this manually in the sample editor, the pitch of all the other parts using that audio would also go up, which is not what I want. So if I convert to new audio file and save it wherever, now it's its own separate audio file, just that long, and I can mess with it and play with it, and it will stay independent. Another useful thing to be able to do is to glue things together. So that's Escape 6. It'll ask me to create a new audio file, which I do, and it's put them all together now. Now I can use the fade tool on it, so I could, let's take that AU pitch movement off. I could fade in with, have the volume fade in, but I can also use the fade tool to speed things up or slow them down as they go out. So it sounds like a turntable starting up or stopping. So and change the curve a bit. You can do that with the fade tool too, but I just got into a habit of doing it this way. You know, that sort of thing. Or you could do it the other way around, have it slow down. Fade, slow down, out, and make that a bit longer. So you get that sense of a turntable slowing down or something. Not so much with this glitchy stuff, but if you were to do that to this sound, for example. Again, this is all really quick stuff. The fun of this is doing loads and loads of edits over a very long track, so you get a really glitchy kind of sound that changes every bar or something. Before I go, because I'm feeling particularly beaty at the moment, I'll just show you one more useful thing. If you're going to be using this across a whole track, it's useful to be able to pack it into a folder. So if you right click on it or control click, go folder and pack folder, now those audio files are still there, but they're in a folder. It's much easier to move them around like that. And if I double click on the folder, it takes me into, this is inside the folder, so I could rearrange this one, you know, so it's a bit different to the other one. To get back to the main arrange page, you click this sort of up, leave folder button up here, and now we're back on the main arrange page. This way you can keep all your little edits and your little chops a bit more tidy, basically. So that's just a quick thing on making loops out of old drum tracks, stretching them, chopping them. There's a few techniques in there that are kind of handy. And by automating things like filters or channel EQs and the pitch, and you can automate all sorts of things, flangers, phasers, that sort of thing. You can make really glitchy, cool beats. And I'm a big fan of doing that by hand rather than using plugins to do it, because you just get all the control and you can really make it musical. And also, you just feel like it's yours instead of just jamming a plugin on there. You feel like you actually did it and it's satisfying. So I hope that's been useful for some of you out there. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks, guys.